Since you all asked for it, part 32. Let's get started. Right off the bat, I want you to pay as much attention to this video as you can, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and good news, the author has recovered from their illness and is back to posting chapters for us. So, he basically stopped just to drink some water. Charlie is here, taking a brief pause to have a sip, but he's still on it. He's really intrigued. I can't help but wonder why this woman is here, why she won't leave my side. Even when I go to the bathroom, she's waiting right outside the door for me to come out. It's that kind of vibe, Charlie, with neither of them saying a word, and Pandora is just the same. She looks a bit more serious than my wife. When my wife gives me that look, I run because something's definitely off. So Charlie turns to Hercules and asks, what kind of expression is she making? Apparently they say she's been like this ever since he disappeared and left her with him. But now her expression is a little less serious than before. While Hercules is serving that tea to Pandora, he tells Charlie to stop by occasionally, even if it's just because of Pandora or that little thing that keeps following him, because you guys are her cure. And Hercules is straight up and tells Charlie that Pandora needs him to get better. Charlie hears this and doesn't even know how to respond, like, how does this woman need me? But then Hercules keeps the conversation going and asks Charlie, so what are you doing here, and why didn't you go up to the 44th floor? Aren't you climbing the tower? Charlie tells Hercules he just came down for a bit because there was a fight on the 43rd floor. Hercules gets curious and asks, what? A fight? So Charlie says yeah, or something like that. But for now, Hercules, I'm going to stay here with you, okay? But it shouldn't be for too long, just a few months. And Hercules replies, what? You're staying with me again? Wow, so cynical. He asks, again? Come on, Hercules. Can't you let me crash here? You're so rich and have so much money. One more mouth to feed won't make you go broke. Pandora looks at Hercules and says, greedy. Finally, Pandora spoke a single word, but she spoke. Hercules, feeling awkward, says that's not what he meant. You know Pandora is just like Charlie. She only says what's absolutely necessary. So, the only one of the three who likes to chat asks Charlie if his plan wasn't to keep climbing, since he heard that Charlie intended to go beyond the tower test. But while he's saying this, Charlie pulls out something from storage. Then, demonstrating, Charlie takes out two of the three sacred treasures, Susan's sword and that mirror from our last video. But Hercules, who's never seen that, hey Charlie, what's that? And the tough guy says, those are two of the three secret treasures. So I was just wandering around and they got to me. Hercules, I've heard of them, and there's no way something like that just happens to show up in his hands. Meanwhile, Pandora isn't saying a word. I'm just sipping her tea. I caught up with what the others were saying, but then Hercules starts piecing things together and says, hey Charlie, you're not being chased by those three precious kids, are you? And the tough guy doesn't respond, just keeps his eyes closed. He's got his eyes shut tight and just keeps going. So Hercules, knowing Charlie's nature, asks him why he loves getting into trouble with high ranks, right? Because from what he knows about the three sacred kids, only Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi are left, am I right, Charlie? Look, I don't know how strong Tsukuyomi is, but Amaterasu had a pretty high rank. So, Charlie, you want my help? Is that why you came here? Charlie knows. Hercules hates to fight, but the fact that he's offering to help means Hercules trusts him completely. However, for the charm plans to work, Hercules still needs to stay here, because he doesn't even need Hercules' help to take down Matarasu. So Charlie tells him, nah, that's cool, you don't need to get involved in our fight. But Hercules knows Matarasu is a high rank and says, hey, it's gonna be tough for you to fight alone, you know? Charlie says he knows, but he has plenty of options to go against Matarasu. So he puts those two sacred treasures back in his inventory. Pandora, still listening in on their chat, heard Hercules say that everyone thinks the fight between Charlie and Matarasu has a pretty obvious outcome. Matarasu's gonna win. But Hercules said that for some reason he's got this gut feeling Charlie is going to win. He doesn't know why. Charlie replied, oh really? That's awesome. But anyway, I can't face him right now, alright? I need to prepare first. You asked someone to do something for me, so I can't do anything against Matarasu until that's done. And Hercules, super curious, asks him, trusting someone who, what was that? Charlie doesn't even answer and says, oh, I just need to hang around here for a while, okay? Until that's complete. And we know what it is. Those 3 gems he gave to Ephes to make a weapon. Then Charlie says to Hercules, oh Hercules, but I need you to help me with something. So they go to another spot and there's Pandora munching on a bag of chips that Hercules bought since he's rich and has millions of points. A bag of chips from the system is what Pandora keeps asking him for. And so, right in front of Hercules, Charlie says, you know, right? I've managed to get gigantification, but it's still pretty immature, so I need the help of a pro like you. To really maximize his potential, Hercules tells Charlie, hey Charlie, I'm not a great teacher. I've never taught anyone and I don't even know how to do it. And Charlie responds, you don't need to teach me. I'm self-taught, and just by watching you, I'll gradually fine-tune my own methods. So Hercules asks Charlie, so, you want to help me develop your giant form? Is that it? Man, Charlie, are you out of your mind? You're asking me to throw punches with you. And Charlie replies, yeah, that's what I'm asking for. But hey, just don't kill me, alright? Then Hercules raises his hand and says, just don't kill you? You must be joking. Charlie, let me show you something. Then Hercules quickly made the shampoo, and just the vacuum from that movement sent a massive shockwave towards Charlie. It spread out until it reached our hero, and tough guy Charlie, just from feeling the heat of that shockwave, steps back 4 paces because it was way stronger than he expected. But then Charlie gets even more shocked, as the pressure from that hit felt like he got run over by a Sekai Sama truck. And so Charlie starts shouting, the red liquid was a lot and more. The ground around Charlie also felt that pressure and starts to crumble. Eros watches Charlie's destruction, realizing the ground couldn't handle even a little bit of pressure, let alone a punch. And then Echo comes close to Charlie and asks, hey, are you okay? You told me don't kill me, right? But I gotta apologize because this part is the hardest. You're just too weak. And now we can understand why Xerxes Romano had such a high chance of winning in the fight against Zeus. Xerxes is a real monster. But Charlie liked this because he knows he'll soon develop a power like that. So Charlie yells and charges at Hercules, trying to enhance his gigantification, and Hercules, holding back a lot, barely uses any force against Charlie. As this monstrous punch swings over Charlie, our protagonist ducks, trying to hit Hercules, and he gets scared because each of Hercules' punches is truly deadly, and if he gets hit by just one of them, he knows it's game over. Then, with immense force and all his might, Charlie lands a solid punch on Hercules' jaw. He looks at Hercules and sees him standing there, thinking it was just a breeze that passed him, since Charlie's punch didn't do anything to him. And so Hercules says to Charlie, those eyes of yours are really bothering me because you keep predicting my moves and dodging all my weak punches. But Hercules, in that split second, he quickly grabs Charlie's arm, the same arm that landed a punch on his chin. With that, Hercules throws a light jab at Charles, using only 0.001% of his strength. But Charles is furious and tries to trip Hercules, yet the giant's legs don't budge an inch. Seeing that Charles's insect is scuttling away, Hercules lands a slightly stronger punch now, using 12 thousandths of his power. That hit made our hearts sink, because Charles couldn't even muster the strength to scream. Suddenly, a lot of red liquid starts pouring from his mouth, but the brave one refuses to give up. Summoning all his strength, he decides to throw a straight punch at Hercules. However, the tough Hercules counters with a punch of his own, using just 3 thousandths of his strength. The scene is a sight to behold, as the sheer force of their clashes is absolutely monstrous. Charles's massive form starts screaming in pain because the blow Hercules landed on him was so powerful, it practically shattered all the bones in his arm. As Charles screams in agony, he realizes just how much stronger Hercules is than him. So with his arm covered in bruises and all his bones broken, he manages to ask Hercules, Hercules, how high is your strength stat? Tell me, because mine is really high, but this is insane. Why are you so strong? What do you eat? Hercules, looking at him, replies, chicken and sweet potatoes. But before Charles can hear that answer, he faints. Hercules approaches him and notices that Charles, when he asked that, was already unconscious. Still out cold, Charles starts mumbling to himself, saying it's not over yet and he needs to keep pushing forward. Hercules recognizes that Charles's tenacity is impressive because even in his unconscious state, he's still talking about his goals. Hercules glances to the side and sees sweet Pandora has arrived with the first aid kit to help her beloved Charles. She tells Hercules, that's just dumb, to which Hercules replies, or you meant the opposite, that it's simply dumb, since Pandora is still learning to talk after being stuck inside that bell for centuries. She takes care of Charles's injuries because if anyone loves Charles, it's definitely her, Pandora. And thus, the training for full gigantification finally begins. Days go by, and the training becomes increasingly intense. Those bruised knuckles can only belong to Charles, as fighting against the monstrous Hercules is nearly impossible. But as the training continues, the system notifies that his gigantification proficiency has increased. So, as Charles's body starts to change, his gigantification level also rises. Charles, with his monkey eyes, realizes he's finally getting what he came for at this place. Once again, the skills of gigantification are increased, but life isn't just about training, so they stop to grab some instant noodles. What's even weirder is that the fire pit is made of wood, and what kind of wood doesn't catch fire? Then, Professor Hercules, sitting across from his student, explains to Charles that gigantification has to do with muscle usage. Charles asks, what? Muscle usage? What do you mean? Hercules responds, just tense your muscles like this and bam, you're good to go. Got it? Charles thinks to himself, he's an idiot. Definitely the worst teacher I've ever had. Meanwhile, a little bird is drawn to something tasty. The beautiful Pandora picks up another seed to feed that bird. So, while that crazy training goes on, the lovely Pandora keeps feeding feeding the bird, hoping it all wraps up soon so she can take care of Charlie again, because he's definitely going to end up with a bunch of broken bones. But the bird is smart and senses these two are about to pull off a move that could shake everything up, so it flies away in a hurry. Now tough Charlie, with his body charged up with giant power, gears up for another hit aimed at Hercules. He tries to do what the teacher told him. He tenses his muscles and bam! Then, tough Charlie is suddenly alerted by the system that only this arm has had its gigantification sterilized. So it's basically the one-armed man. It must be the arm of affection. Hercules tells him, "Hey dude, why did you concentrate your gigantification only in that one arm? That's kinda clever, but it'll stress that arm out. Your arm is connected to your shoulder, and the shoulder's connected to the rest of your body, so something's gonna break. But since you can't maintain complete gigantification, at least only part of your body will take the hit." Charlie retorts, "But it'll be different this time because I've mastered the gigantification in this arm now." So tough Charlie, stomping hard on the ground, gets ready to charge at Hercules one more time, because this time, for the 1,127th time, this blow is going to land. And just like that, tough Charlie breaks the sound barrier, rushing full speed at Hercules. This time, he's going to scratch that giant with the trail he leaves behind. He's moving several times faster than the speed of sound as the rocks behind our protagonist shatter, just from the vacuum he creates. The scene shifts to nighttime at Hercules' house, where tough Charlie is lying on the floor, all broken, with sweet Pandora tending to her beloved, and she says, "Stupid, plain and simple," and Charlie talks to her. "Pandora, you're talking the opposite way again." But Pandora knows that this training is just dumb stuff. One gets hit while the other takes a beating, because so far Charlie hasn't managed to leave a scratch on Hercules. So, the days have been like this. Pandora the nurse taking care of Charlie while Hercules the masseur tries not to kill the stubborn Charles. Then, for the first time, Pandora says a full sentence. She tells him, "Oh, for 3 days don't push it, got it?" And Charles responds, "What 3 days?" "Yeah, rest." Pandora is still learning to speak, and most of her sentences come out without connecting words or linking verbs. So Pandora stands in front of Hercules, gives him that angry look, and thinks, "I think this time I've gone too far and broken way more of his bones than before. But look here, Pandora, these are bruises that showed up on my hand. I hit his face so hard that I even got these bruises on my hand. This guy has a face made of iron. Seems like he has a donkey's jaw." So Pandora says to him, "Your hand." And then she does this. She opens the first aid kit, but Hercules tells her, no need for that. Just give it 2 hours and it'll be fine. But still, she wants to take care of Hercules because he's the chip guy. Then Hercules turns and starts leaving, saying he's fine and doesn't need her treatment. So annoyed, Hercules looks at his hands, wondering how this is possible. It's been over 1,000 years since he last had a bruise, and not even when he fought the giants in the Gigantomachy did he have a cut on his body. But this time, hitting Charlie's face, for the first time, my hand got hurt. And so he asks Pandora, "I wonder, Pandora, am I turning him into a monster?" And Pandora asks, "What monster?" Then Hercules explains to her, even though he doesn't really know how to teach gigantification, he's definitely learning and boosting his proficiency. So Charlie is not the same guy I almost killed with the vacuum of my hand. Now he's way stronger than before. And considering the time he has spent in the tower, a regular player wouldn't have made it past the 10th floor. He really is something else. Meanwhile, the beautiful Pandora is paying close attention to what Hercules is explaining to her. Hercules says that Charlie is the fastest one climbing the tower, and every time he takes on challenges much bigger than the last. And Pandora, looking over at Charlie's room, says, "Scared." And Hercules, "I forgot. I'm a little scared." And sweet Pandora asks, "What is he scared of?" Hercules says he's worried about Charlie's goals because it seems like Olympus and the 3 precious kids are just stepping stones in his path. He's aiming much higher. But Charlie has never told me why he's doing this. Why does he train so hard? He doesn't even talk smack about the people he's fighting, and the things he does aren't just from someone looking to get stronger. He has a goal. Charlie has a lot of power, but he doesn't show the same thirst for power as the other players. He seems pretty balanced, not letting that thirst take over who he is. When Hercules tells Pandora he can't see what Charles is after, he opens the door and talks to Hercules. "Yeah, I wonder what I'm after too." But Pandora says, "I already told you, it's been 3 days. Charles says he's just resting and only moving around a bit because this time it's just his arms that are hurt, not his legs, so he can walk, you know?" Then Charles tells Pandora, "If you're not going, grab your iPhone 17 Plus Ultra and call that person because waiting here is wasting too much time. I need to check if he's done what I asked him to do." And here it is, man. Charlie hits up Affection and says, "There, it's done." And Affection replies, "Yeah, it's done." So after getting that message, Charlie tells the two of them, "All right, I gotta head down to the first floor, okay? I'm out." Then the scene shifts to a few days later, on the first floor of that massive tower, and we see Charlie has made it to Affection's workshop to check on what he ordered. Oddly enough, Affection's door has no doorknob, and he says, "Hey, what's wrong with you guys? Are you crazy? Why'd you do this?" And we see that the door knocker is in Hercules' hand because he knocked on the door, and suddenly, it broke. Pandora's just thinking, idiot, you're such an idiot. But to the delight of our viewers, little Charlino also shows up and says, Daddy, Daddy, but affection looks at them like, the first is the god of destruction, Hercules. The second is a totally unconventional player, really bizarre. And next to them is the Lady of Ruin, who, just by passing through, left thousands and thousands of corpses in her wake. And then there's Charlie, being all cute, and he talks to them. What kind of combo is this? You trying to wreck this tower? Because you guys are way too strong. You know that? Hey, Hercules, that's not the doorknob to my door. Why'd you rip my doorknob off, you beast? It's supposed to be pulled gently. Charlie explains that he pulled it gently, but since no one answered, they knocked a little harder, and that's how it broke. It was an accident, okay? Do you know any blacksmiths who can fix that door? And Affection, really mad, puts his hand on his face and is thinking, Charlie, I look like this because that thing you brought me has worn me out and taken a lot out of me. Since Charlie had told him he looked worn out. Looks like you're overwhelmed, so Charlie said to him, hey man, at least you got some sleep, because sleep is really important, you know? He said that, of course, it wasn't exactly fun doing that, and he'd gone months without sleep. All right, come with me, he's in there, okay? So, mad as hell, Charlie finally figured out what weapon turned into those 3 infinity stones, and he knew those 3 stones would become a super powerful item that had never been made in that tower. So, for some, added suspense, hey man, go down those stairs nice and slow, because where it's hidden is below your workshop, and there are a ton of control runes. That place is radiating some intense mana, like there's a giant monster in there. But tough Charlie walks right in, calm as can be, hands in his pockets. Then he asks, it's customary to name items, but this one here got its name automatically when I finished building it. He said what it was called, and I was stunned because it was the first time that had ever happened. So, hey man, put your hand on that incredibly powerful barrier, which is blocking a good chunk of that item's power. When the glove senses that you're getting close, it zaps your hand and pushes you back from those hands that dared to come near. And then the voice says to Charlie, you see that thing? That's wild. He was confused because right after finishing that item, it rejected him and wouldn't even let me get close, like it already had an owner. Charlie's eyes went wide. What do you mean, an item with a mind of its own? The voice explained to Charlie that when he hit Zeus, he did it while holding on to Zeus's lightning. The divine crystal of the sea and the divine crystal of darkness were also items he had controlled. So, Charlie, I think that item is tied to you and rejects anyone who tries to get near it. So, you're pushing your limits with this super weapon, and you just got another glove that now has a stone on it, but I don't even have a classification for it. Charlie, do you think you're the owner? Go ahead, put your hand on it. If it kicks you and kills you, it means you're not the owner, but if it accepts you, I think you won't die. So, Charlie, moving his hands towards the glove, asks what its name is. But in a split second, Charlie notices something passing by and looks to the side. Then the glove speaks to him. My name is Heart of Uranus. And just like that, brave Charlie is automatically transported to another dimension. That weapon, besides being sentient, also talks to him. So brave Charlie walks towards a light he sees, because it seems like the being hidden in that stone is right in front of him. Then the person speaks to him. You finally made it! And brave Charlie stands there frozen and in awe of what's happening. So, that big all-seeing eye reveals a human silhouette coming down. It looks like this is the being that was hiding inside those 3 jewels. Charlie, the brave one, stands there, scared and not making a move. Then Charles asks, Zeus, is that you? The being, placing a hand on his face, replies, Zeus, so you mean my grandson is all grown up now? Thus, we're introduced to Zeus's grandfather, who is practically Zeus but with different hair. Since he came before, it's Zeus who resembles him. He then says, from what you're saying, it sounds like my grandson and I look a lot alike. Next, we get to see the ranking system. Charlie isn't in the rankings right now, but in the future version of himself, he was the 5th strongest in that tower, while Zeus moved up from 9th to 6th. You can read the rest for yourself, but the coolest part is Hercules and Matarassos. They've both grown a lot and gotten super strong. Then we learn who Uranus is. He's the father of Kronos, and Kronos is the father of Zeus. Kronos had told Charlie that his dad, Uranus, was a tyrant who once lived in that tower. Uranus was the one who devoured his own brothers to become stronger. You know the reputation of getting stronger? He even swallowed his uncle, the giants trapped in Tartarus, all devoured by Uranus. But every time he did that, he became much more powerful. Kronos explains he had to fight to survive because his dad wanted to consume him. To fight back against his father, Kronos called on Odin, the Gade, seen in the Vedas. He also gathered all the top ranks from ancient times to have a slim 10% chance against Uranus because that tyrant needed to be taken down, even if he was his father. The scene shifts to the past, and they continue talking. Kronos says, Charlie, are you asking me if I won? In the end, we did win. The halves of the top ranks that joined us were completely obliterated by my dad. That little brat couldn't even get close because he's way too weak compared to the other top ranks. Oh, Charlie, did you know my dad was the worst being in that tower and the strongest of all? For years, he held the #1 spot in the tower's power rankings. He was undoubtedly the very heavens of Olympus. Then we see Uranus in all his glory, exuding charisma. Charlie, now in the present, looking at this being, directly asks, "Hey, are you Uranus?" But before responding, he tells Charlie, "This is the first time you've seen me, right? But look, I've seen you several times. But since you've seen my grandson, and I look like him, I suppose I'm not totally a stranger to you." Right then and there, Uranus summons 2 chairs for them to sit down. Charlie is really surprised because out of nowhere, these 2 pieces of furniture just appeared. Uranus tells him that Charlie is a guest and encourages him to make himself comfortable. Uranus asks Charlie if he finds it funny that these objects popped up out of nowhere. It's not a big deal. Uranus describes himself as just an old guy stuck in a small space, nothing more. But Charlie knows who Uranus is. He's not just some old dude trapped in a room. He's the strongest being in that tower, right in front of him. Charlie, sweating a bit and feeling nervous, sizes up Uranus because he's giving off 0 signals, not even a Wi-Fi bar. He notices that Uranus is sitting cross-legged, sipping on some tea. He seems pretty chill, and Charlie picks up that Uranus doesn't seem hostile at all. So Charlie starts a conversation with him. Uranus sets down his tea, looks ahead, and asks, "What did you call me for?" Charlie asks if he knows Kronos. Uranus replies, "Kronos, Kronos, Kronos." Charlie, being sharp, realizes that Kronos used his life and existence to time travel, and if he's been completely wiped out, Uranus surely won't remember him, because in the current world, Kronos doesn't exist and won't ever again. Charlie recalls having asked Kronos before, "Are you going to stop existing?" Kronos said he didn't know, and wasn't sure if, by existing at all, he'd handle it. Charlie asks this directly to Uranus, knowing it was Kronos who gathered all the high-ranking figures to take down his dad. Because of this, he believes it's impossible for Uranus to forget his son, but Uranus doesn't respond. Instead, he says, "You really put in a lot of effort to gather all those fragments, huh? And honestly, I thought you wouldn't pull it off." In his mind, Charlie realizes from Uranus's response that, as he suspected, Kronos has indeed been erased from existence. Not even Uranus, who was taken down by his son, remembers him. Then Charlie, pointing to the moon, says to Uranus, "I heard this was your heart, is that right?" Uranus responds, "Well, that was in my chest, pumping blood. It's pretty much like my heart." Charlie asks, "Like what? Be clear with me. I don't get it at all." Uranus raises his hand, starts radiating power, and says, "Well, that was my everything, and I lived for it." Then we see that Uranus's heart is floating above his hand. He tells Charlie he lived for that heart, which is why he devoured his own brothers and craved even more power, because the greed that comes from that thing is truly uncomfortable. But little by little, as he chased after more power, without even realizing it, I turned into a monster. I killed everything in my path, and Charlie asks him, "What do you mean by all that?" Uranus warned Charlie to be careful not to become a monster and let this item control him. Anyone with a being of power in hand can quickly turn into a monster. Then he says, "Hey Charlie, want to try it out? Put on that glove and see what happens." Brave Charlie puts on that glove. Uranus's heart doesn't feel anything, but the system soon chimes in. "You've, acquired the heart of Uranus." Once he does that, the power contained in that glove starts to flow into Charlie. Then the system tells Charlie, "You've also acquired Uranus's desire." Charlie ponders this, wondering what Uranus's desire actually is. He realizes that this feeling is familiar but a bit different. Even though it's unstable, it's too poorly made to be Kaustolo's work. This feeling is like a kid who suddenly got strong and doesn't know what to do with all that power. As he sees that being, which seems like an outsider, representing Uranus's desire, he asks Uranus if this is the monster he mentioned. Just then, someone from Charlie's world runs out shouting, "Daddy! Daddy!" This is when the predator reveals itself in that spot, because Charlie just spotted a delicious meal. The predator is activated and a clash of gods erupts right there. Charlie's predator, Uranus's desire, "Daddy! Daddy!" and it continues below. Uranus, witnessing all this, is very surprised and says to, "Yeah, Charlie, wow, you were under the protection of this thing? What a unique little thing you have there, huh? Daddy, Daddy." Uranus, watching the devourer confront that being, tells Charlie, "Maybe I worried for nothing." Then Charlie asks Uranus what that kid is doing protecting him. Uranus replies, "Kid? Does that huge being look small to you? That says a lot about what being small really means." Uranus starts laughing at him. Meanwhile, the system announces that Maple has leveled up. You all know Maple is Charlinho, so Charlinho leveled up again, and there he is, a predator of predators, devouring everything. Because that Uranus's desire he controlled up to the highest rank of that tower is nothing more than food for our Charlie. He's there leveling up, devouring everything in front of him. Now Charlie's skills have reached level 8, 8, and his growth rate has increased to 9%. So our strong Charlie gains 2 more mana, and at the level he's at, gaining 2 more mana is a big deal. And thus Charlinho, the ex-Mozovo, defeated and devoured Uranus's desire. That seemingly external god was devoured by the predator. So Charlie asks Uranus, well, he looks small to me. How does he look to you? Uranus stands up and walks toward Charlie. Charlie gets alert because if this guy could really be almighty, he's coming right at him. Without saying anything, Uranus begins to fade away and tells Charlie that they'll meet again soon. Charlie's eyes widen and someone is talking to him. Hey, Charlie, wake up! So we see that Charlie was just standing there, stunned in that dimension. Meanwhile, Pandora is in front of him saying, hey, wake up, Charlie, wake up! When Charlie blinks back to reality, she asks him, hey, Charlie, are you okay? Realizing Pandora's back, Charlie replies that yes, he's fine. Then the system informs us that Charlie has acquired Uranus's heart, forged from consuming countless other rankings, which gives him the ability to harness the stored power within it. Charlie looks at it, thinking, what a brief description. It doesn't explain anything. He knows there are 2 possibilities. Either that item is worthless, or the system struggles to accurately convey its effects. But it's definitely not the first case, because that item is far from insignificant. Charlie remembers that Odin's Gangnia also had a similar description, and that item can be compared to that weapon. He knows this new item is way stronger than that. As he contemplates what kind of energy this item could harness, Charlie thinks about testing, just how strong it is, and says, I know how I'm gonna test this. Hercules notices something different in how Charlie's looking at him, but Charlie is focused on testing his power. Then the scene shifts to the 33rd or 34th floor, where Hercules' home is. 2 people are munching on the fries Hercules bought, totally hooked on those little snacks from Pandora's party. Hercules thumps his chest and tells Charlie, hey Charlie, don't worry about me. You can hit me hard. No one's ever scratched my chest. Just watch your arm, because if you hit too hard, you're definitely gonna break it again. And just so you know, no matter how hard you hit, I can take it. Hercules tells Charlie that no one has ever harmed his body. Charlie knows that well and admits that Hercules has such a strong body that even with all his might, he couldn't leave a scratch on him. And so, Charlie, wearing Uranus's invisible gloves, remembers the time he spent training with Hercules. It can't really be called training, but while Hercules was swinging, he was also taking hits. So he practically got hit multiple times a day. We find out that Charlie fought Hercules for the entire month, but in that time, he didn't even manage to scratch Hercules, because that mark that popped up on Hercules' hand, he didn't show Charlie either. And that was on the last day. So now, with his new hack, Charlie gears up for another serious punch. The system quickly alerts him that he's using Uranus's heart and that the ocean's blessing is starting to seep into his body. At the same time, Tartarus gets invoked, because Uranus's heart is a weapon with a ton of hacks. Charlie notices that even the name of his ability has changed, and realizes that what's surrounding him is that deep sea that swallowed him when he was on the 42nd floor. Then, the system informs Charlie that, since this power is extremely strong, a normal condition has just impacted his body. So, corrosion begins. Charlie, a bit of a masochist, realizes that this pain is bearable and even feels kind of good. However, the normal condition progresses to the 2nd stage, and the corrosion increases even more. Charlie notices that the pain has doubled, but he can tough it out a little longer. He fully focuses on drawing even more power from that weapon, enduring the worst pain of his life. He launches himself at Hercules at full speed and throws a massive punch at Hercules' chest, trying to see what effect that weapon has. Hercules, the brave one, stands his ground, not taking a step back, holding his massive frame steady against the force of that attack. But it wasn't just a physical hit, it was both feeding and spiritual. A colossal surge of power bursts from the glove and slams into Hercules' chest. Holding that torrent of power feels like hitting an impenetrable wall. That strike was so powerful, it could be seen from miles away. Festa, the high rank from that tower, covers his face and stands in front of Pandora, wondering if this is Uranus's power. Pandora stands there as always, doing nothing, because if you didn't know, she's also one of the top ranks in that tower, and she's incredibly strong. Festa had thought he created the greatest masterpiece of his life, but this power is far beyond anything he imagined. He's completely taken aback because the amount of power this item unleashed was way more than anything he's ever seen in this tower, and yet that monster is still standing and blocked that attack. Then it hits Festa. The monsters are everywhere because Charlie is a monster, but Hercules looks like a restless beast. Hercules thinks he gave it his all to block that attack, but it's already been shown that that attack, it was way stronger than Hercules expected. Not only did it land a heavy hit, but it also left a mark on his chest, drawing out a lot of red liquid. So Hercules looks at the monster in front of him and wonders how the hell Charlie pulled that off, especially since nobody in this tower had hurt him before. But now, Charlie managed to not only hurt him, but also to draw out his red fluid. This shows us the power of God Uranus, the strongest being in the tower. And now, our Charlie finally has a power that can reach the highest ranks of that tower because the Infinity Gems arms have once again become one weapon, the heart of Uranus. The scene shifts to someone all bandaged up and complaining. He says, "You just can't leave any injury alone, can you? Where did you study medicine, huh? And by the way, you're pretty skilled with bandages and medicine, you know?" It turns out the injured one this time is Hercules. For the first time in millennia, someone hit him so hard that it actually drew out his red fluid. Nurse Pandora mentions she's done enough for him to rest, then she glances at the wound behind her. Hercules asks Charlie, "Hey, you okay?" Charlie, flexing his bicep, replies that he's not fine, but he's not gonna die from it. It's revealed that tough Charlie has had all the fingers on his hand broken, because hitting Hercules' chest with all his strength showed that our hero's body isn't as tough as the champion of Olympus. So, Charlie is left with an injured hand, but it's the hand of affection. Charlie notices that this time his wounds aren't healing very quickly. When he hit Hercules, a lot of dark mana mixed with his injuries, slowing down his healing process, but he knows the same thing is happening to Hercules. So Hercules tells him, "Charlie, this power seems like a poison, because my body, which heals in minutes, isn't able to do that anymore. What kind of poisonous substance did you come up with, huh? What monstrous power is this?" Charlie responds that this poison is just right and actually good for the body. Then Hercules says to him, "Charlie, I know that when you used that weapon, it corroded your body from the inside. Still, you're thinking of using it again?" Charlie, holding a little small charm in his hand, answers Hercules that you can't gain anything without taking risks. Then Charlie says he's willing to take that risk, but he'll use it sparingly, because if he keeps using that weapon all the time, it's definitely gonna kill him. "I'll use it only in crucial moments." Hercules realizes that Charlie is crazy and totally motivated, so he doesn't say anything else. I keep watching Charlie, who always attracts the strangest and most unusual things in this tower, and little Charlie's right there, really enjoying getting his head patted. Hercules knows that this creature in Charlie's hands can hardly be called a divine beast. This being is so powerful, and it possesses a strength never seen in this tower before. It's clear that even Hercules is scared of Charlie, and realizes that tough Charlie is quite the handful when dealing with this entity, which is way stronger than him. Since everyone is fine and no one has died, let's rest and wait for our wounds to heal slowly. The next day, the fire carriage arrives at that spot. Then, the party happens as they reach the 33rd floor. The Uber goes wild and kicks everyone out of the carriage. He tells them, "All right, see you next time, okay? I'm out of here, and I don't need to say anything else." That pissed off Uber warns that if they rate him less than 5 stars next time, he'll take them all out. Charlie already knew this would happen, as the old guy is a bit of a party animal and always does this at goodbyes. He sends everyone off and goes on his way because he doesn't like farewells. Charlie agrees with Hercules that he'll go up the tower and drop him off at the 38th floor. In the meantime, Charlie says he'll manage to make it to the top. Hercules then asks Charlie, "Hey Charlie, did you get the item you wanted? Has your gigantification matured yet? So that means nothing's holding you back down here, right? You're going back up the tower, aren't you?" Charlie says yes, he's leaving now and will keep climbing the tower. However, a gorgeous lady, upon hearing that he's leaving, grabs his shirt sleeve tightly and doesn't let go. The witch Pandora then asks him, "Charlie, are you leaving?" Charlie replies that he is, but he remembers what Hercules told him, that when he has some time, he should come by to see Pandora, either him or the little one who clings to him because they're her remedy, and that woman needs you, Charlie. So, Charlie thinks he needs to say something to cheer her up and says, "Hey Pandora, I'm gonna come visit you here on the 38th floor from time to time, but it might take a while. I will come." And upon hearing this, she stays silent and just watches the man she's grown to love. They seem like a couple. Pandora says goodbye to Charlie and tells him to take care of himself. Then, with another sun carriage, Charlie tells Hercules and Pandora to head up to the 38th floor. While guiding that carriage, Charlie asks Hercules what happened to his brother Apollo, since he heard that Apollo disappeared well before their fight against Zeus. Hercules explains that his great-uncle went into the dungeon of Zeus's temple, freed his 2 brothers who were locked up there, and revealed that it was really easy to break them out. He just went down there and said, "I'm the new owner of this prison, all right? So let my nephews go?" And when they were released from prison, I honestly thought it was a good thing. But Apollo seemed to have gone through hell with his dad and was still really hurt, considering the 2 of them fought Zeus alone and lost. The cross suggests that his situation was already pretty desperate since they fought for their lives, and if they hadn't given it their all, they would definitely be dead by now. So the cross asks him, "Hey Charlie, you seem like a heartless guy, but the weird thing is, you always worry about others. Those 2 brothers of mine, they're not the ones you should be worried about. They're actually really strong. They got into the tower way before you and made it to the top. Fighting against their parents isn't gonna break them that easily. So Charlie, don't try to carry that burden all by yourself, all right? Besides, what are you waiting for to hop on that carriage? Let's roll." Charlie realizes that Hercules is a true friend who's always trying to lighten his load, showing that friends look out for each other. With that in mind, brave Charlie smiles because his great friend Hercules hasn't changed one bit. He's just like he remembered from the future, just like you told him. "Hey Charlie, snap out of it, let's go." So, Charlie takes the reins of that horse and finally leaves that floor of the tower, heading towards the 38th floor. Because now, in this new chapter of our story, it's about to kick off. Then, the scene shifts to some time later on. The 44th floor, where there's a lot of red liquid on the ground, ketchup and soy sauce, since guts and arteries were ripped apart in that spot. A little way off, but still on that floor, more secrets and many deaths unfolded. Then, a few days later, still on the 44th floor, a group of people is complaining because this guy has been around for a while, wandering everywhere and causing us a ton of trouble. But hey, if we manage to take him out, the reward is really sweet. We won't ever have to worry about points again. We'll be millionaires. But then, as a huge explosion happens, bloodied blades are flung away from it. Someone shouts, "Hey, you looking for something? Bring it on." But then, the scene repeats. People getting killed and red liquid spilling across the floor of the 44th floor once more. Strangely enough, it's not our Charlie. It's just two people beating up a third. One of them tells the other, "Go for it, empty this bastard's pockets." So while everyone on the 44th floor is searching for Charlie, they take out anyone who isn't part of their gang and steal their credits. A third person passing by asks, "Hey, isn't killing illegal on this floor?" No, because technically it's illegal to kill players the way they're doing it here on any floor. It might seem like it's not illegal, but the guy doing all the killing says that up on that floor. They have the support of the three precious kids, so they can do whatever they want. This shows us that the one causing all this massacre is Matarasso, as he's desperately looking for Charlie but can't find him anywhere. Knowing Charlie is on that floor, he's relentless, hunting him down day after day. The group of criminals Matarasso has gathered consists of aimless thugs and players who couldn't get into any guild, even those who have given up trying to climb the tower. All these outcasts have joined Matarasso's gang because most of them are starving, broke, and powerless. The only way they can get what they want, money, is by being part of his crew. Feeling like criminals and outcasts, they have one goal: to please the three precious kids and earn some favors from them. So, Matarasso's strategy is to spread his gang all over the 44th floor and prevent Charlie from reaching the 45th. Then, an anonymous guy sends out a message. "Hey, Charlie is too close. He's got the Yada mirror. Get over here now." This reveals that one of the three sacred treasures is being carried by Charlie, who's trying to execute his plan. While taking a break, brave Charlie is hiding in an abandoned house, explaining that he hasn't been spotted yet. He intentionally revealed his location to gather all his enemies in one spot and take them out at once. Charlie realizes Matarasso's gang consists of tens of thousands of people. With such a massive group of criminal players, he knows Matarasso is aware of everything happening on this floor. What surprises Charlie is that he thought Matarasso's gang was only about 1,000 strong, not tens of thousands. Before Charlie left, Odin warned him that Matarasso's forces were concentrated on this floor, and that if he could, he should do something about it. However, Charlie is just running around, taking out player after player. The star of the show, Matarasso, hasn't even shown up yet. While Charlie is resting and munching on jerky, he realizes if Matarasso keeps this up, by the time they finally meet, he'll be fully recharged and not the least bit tired from all this running. But suddenly, Charlie senses a presence. His eyes widen, and a human silhouette approaches him quickly. He wonders what level this person is since they got so close without him noticing. And since this person is right in front of him, without a hood on, Charlie is sure it's not Matarasso. Then the person speaks up. "What do you think you're doing, huh? You've been tearing it up on the 44th floor for days now. Are you looking to get yourself killed?" And Charlie, taking her hands, one of the three sacred eyes knows something's off. But then, that sword starts vibrating, showing it has some kind of connection with the person approaching. We're told by the system who showed up, it's Tsukuyomi, one of the three precious kids. She's high-ranked, number 86. So, she asks Charlie, "What do you think you're doing, tough guy?" Charlie is on the hunt for the matracha and wasn't expecting Tsukuyomi to show up here. Then, that gorgeous woman says, "That's the sword with sacred energy, right?" This intrigues Charlie because this woman seems more interested in Suzunu's sword, not that mirror. The sword just keeps vibrating at the sound of her voice. Charlie, looking at Suzunu's sword, senses something different because that crazy hacker who can only think about meat and the workshop, why is he acting this way in front of her? So Charlie asks Suzunu, "Hey, what's your deal? Are you happy to see your friend after 1,000 years? But Suzunu says nothing, just staying still and vibrating his sword. So Charlie watches and realizes that only one guy is looking at him. He comes to a conclusion. It has to be it. After sizing up that beautiful woman, Charlie asks Suzunu, "So, do you like her or not?" Jose instantly replies, "Of course not. Let her talk to him." "Oh, he does like her. I can see it. Look how she's reacting. Her arm won't stop shaking." Suzunu starts getting annoyed and says, "I already told you I don't like her." And the tough guy says, "Okay, who do you think you're fooling? I've never seen you act this way. I've been through many women on this floor. They act part of themselves, and you've never reacted like this. You must like her for sure." But that high rank isn't going to stay still, and she quickly advances on Charlie, trying to snatch that sword from him. But Charlie moves super fast, pulling that sword away before she can grab it. The guy tries to take that sword, and the woman looks mad, since she didn't even try to hit Charlie, just wanted to get that sword. So she starts boosting her aura. Then, brave Charlie notices something. The fact that this woman just tried to take the sword and didn't fight him means the feeling must be mutual. She must like him too. Realizing this, Charlie quickly comes up with a plan and says, Sugo man, did you know the Matraza used the dragon and the forest on Orochi to take down Susanoo? But while he says this, he dodges another attempt from her to grab that sword. Then, as Charlie raises that sword, he asks her, am I your friend? Two of your friends are on opposite sides. Who are you gonna choose? And she replies to Charlie, do you know something about Susanoo? Did Mataracho really kill Susanoo? Charlie said he didn't kill him directly, but he set a trap for Susanoo. In that trap, he died. Wanting more clarification, she asks him, okay, what do you mean by that? Charlie explains that Mataracho died facing Yamato at Orochi. He went to fight that monster and ended up dead. Still not convinced, Charlie presses on with her explanation. It was agreed between Susanoo and Mataracho that they'd fight Yamato at Orochi together, but Mataracho never showed up, leaving Susanoo to take on Orochi alone. She told Charlie that Susanoo is all about hidden battles, but I didn't get why he'd fight that monster by himself, because that would endanger his life. So she directly asks Charlie, tell me, how can you be so sure? Charlie responds, I heard it straight from Susanoo. She's like, what? In person? How's that even possible if he was dead? Charlie replies, well, since you don't believe me. And then, the king of the dead. Charlie swings that sword, releasing Susanoo's soul, and tells Tsuki, since you don't believe me, ask him directly. Just then, Susanoo appears right in front of Tsuki, and she freaks out. Once she sees and feels Susanoo's soul, she knows it's really him. With a choked voice, she exclaims, you're Susanoo, that crazy guy! The Atalha gives Tsuki a smile and says, why are you so surprised? You've never seen a dead guy come back to life before. No, but you know, right? Of course he didn't come back to life. Charlie just temporarily materialized him. Tsuki, seeing Susanoo's response, says, he does look like him, he's just as dumb. But still, it's been a long time since you disappeared. Susanoo looks into her eyes and replies, it really has. Suddenly they hear some noise and something surrounds the house, as if a lot of people are arriving there. He tells both of them, looks like they found out I'm hiding in here. Then Susanoo tells Tsuki, unfortunately, I think our time is running out. We don't have much time to chat. He then says to her, Tsuki, ask me something, but I've got time for one answer for sure. And she, with a sad look, nods and says, with the way they're coming closer, I think we really don't have much time. Mataracho is definitely involved in your death. And Susanoo, one of the greatest swordsmen in that tower, looking deep into her eyes, replied, yeah, she's definitely involved in my death. So she, ready for Charlie, says, so he's telling the truth. He didn't force you to say that. Charlie realizes she's not trusting Susanoo because Mataracho is the only living friend she has left. Tsukishima asks Susanoo, what? They've been friends for thousands of years, so why would he do this to you? Susanoo tells her she should feel that too. Daisy Dukes. Or maybe it's just the space around me. 6th, 310. That guy changed a lot after he got that sick weapon in the Atagama. Susanoo explained to her that since they were friends, he thought the situation wanted them to team up against that monster in Orochi. But then, time went by, and he never showed up. So what did I do? I love fighting, so I went to take on that monster by myself. Time kept passing, and he still didn't show. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. There I was, fighting that 8-headed monster alone. I had already chopped off one of its heads, so I grabbed my Aborophone and called him, saying I needed him because the battle was getting really tough. He said, oh, my Uber didn't come, just wait a little longer. An hour later, I called him again. He told me he was in the bathroom because he had a stomachache. After that, he said the carriage he took went in the wrong direction and that he fell asleep. So time passed. In the end, he never showed up. And you know what happened next? The other 7 heads killed me. Because this loser you see isn't the same one we knew before I got this sword. But I thought it was just a feeling because he was always our friend. However, when I was mortally wounded and lying on the ground, agonizing to die, that guy showed up right in front of me. I had no strength left. I was mortally wounded and couldn't even move. And you know what he did? He didn't help me. He just flipped my body over and started searching for my sword, all while looking me right in the eyes. Those greedy eyes I will never forget, because the only thing he came looking for was my sword. He scoured the area, searching for it. Spent over half an hour doing that while I lay there dying, only looking for my sword. At that moment, I was sure that this was a trap he set up. But you know me? I may be stupid, but not that stupid, because I hid one of the 3 sacred treasures in such a secret spot that he would never find it. I did that long before the fight, because if he had known that the Ma'a sword was hidden, he would have never set up that trap. So the choice is yours. You can trust him or me, but I didn't lie to you, okay? And Charlie isn't controlling me. And so, Tsuki, seeing the love of her life in front of her, starts to think, reflecting on all the words he just said. But suddenly, footsteps come closer and someone yells, hey, he came this way! Then Susanoo says to Tsuki, hey, it's time for you to go. She nods in agreement and prepares to leave. But before she does, does, she says her goodbyes. See you later. We'll meet again. And with that, Susano, the master of the pool box, finally smiles because the only person he ever loved is right in front of him. Then she asks him, hey, we're going to see each other again. In the meantime, he's fading into the mist, but he tells her he will definitely see her again. So this Suki starts using her ability to disappear as well, turning into pink sparkles and heading back to the land of the dead, while the other one turns into blue sparkles. I'm not sure where she went, whether she stayed invisible or went somewhere else, but suddenly, puff, they vanished. Then, Charlie starts reflecting on things. When that woman left, she said, see you later. He thinks he's got an ally now, but she's a pretty powerful one, 86 on the power ranking of this tower. Suddenly, a bunch of weapons come into play. They shout, there he is, I found him, it's Charlie. So the toughest of the tough smiles at them and says, how cool, so many of you. Time for me to start running again, right? Let's see who can catch me. And just like that, Charlie takes out several of them and bolts out of there. But you know, the moment they spotted Charlie, they grabbed their phones and called their boss, saying, Mr. Amaterasu, we found him. So the matter is just watching this. Charlie running ahead with thousands of warriors behind him. But it's getting pretty boring, because after watching for a while, the matter realizes Charlie is just circling the same places. He wonders what Charlie's goal is and why he's doing this. It looks like he's just going in circles. Amaterasu is up in a tree, thinking this is part of Charlie's strategy, but he's searched everywhere and can't find any signs of the Asgardians. So he starts questioning if the support Charlie had in Valhalla was just a bluff, but up there in the tree, filled with doubts, he just watches. Amaterasu looks at his men and knows he's managed to gather thousands of players in that spot. However, these players aren't the best, but their sheer number means they could take on any big guild. So Amaterasu clenches his fists and starts a summoning. A red glow begins to form between his fingers, revealing a jade jewel, which appears to be the third weapon given to the three precious children and belongs to Amaterasu. Finally, Amaterasu seems ready for battle. The system announces that the power of that jewel has been activated, boosting everyone's attributes in the area by 15% while reducing the enemy's attributes by 15%. Meanwhile, allies get a 90% increase in resistance, while the enemy's resistance drops by 1,000%. Chaos status is activated for the enemies, but allies receive the desert status. In short, Charlie got a buff. All the other players got buffed too, and they gained an advantage. That's the power of this jewel. And so, all the subordinates start yelling because they realize that one of the three sacred eyes has been activated on them. It's definitely time for those precious kids to shine. They're ecstatic, completely hyped up. Charlie activates his monkey eyes, and the gray eyes resist the debuff from that jewel. But Charlie has several hacks up his sleeve, and the Predator, who is Charlinho, also withstands the effects of that jewel. Uranus's heart holds strong against those effects too. Everyone came together and resisted, so the resistance was a success. Charlie shakes off all the debuffs he had suffered and draws his sword. Meanwhile, all those battle-crazed enemies rev up their bikes and charge at Charlie, but brave Charlie slices through them so fast, he doesn't even have time to close his mouth, and just like that, chaos reigns in that spot. But you know what? Charlie has one of the three sacred treasures, and what does it do? It drinks blood. The more blood it drinks, the more mana from the enemies it absorbs. After absorbing mana, it keeps drinking blood and amplifies its wielder's strength even more. So it keeps drinking blood and boosting Charlie's power. But then you might think, wow, what a cool weapon that drinks the enemy's blood. Nope, it's actually drinking Charlie's blood, not the enemy's. Since it's a magical sword, it drains the strength of its wielder but grants them immense power. So Charlie smiles and starts to think some absurd thoughts. He thinks to himself, wow, I've never been drained before, but this feels kinda good. I like being drained. Hearing this, you'd be like, huh, what do you mean drained? I'm lost. Man, this guy is wild. The weapon's draining his blood, and he's enjoying it. But Charlie's doing this on purpose, using one of his three sacred eyes to draw Amaterasu's attention, obviously lurking around, just watching the unfolding battle. But it doesn't seem like a battle. It's a one-sided massacre brought by Charlie. Charlie takes a moment and thinks, I know, I'll force him to show himself because I have the mirror, which is one of your other three sacred items, and the second is this sword in my hand. Instantly, Charlie opens his inventory and pulls out his miter sword, enveloped in the power of the Jewel of Darkness. After picking up that sword, he spins the other sword in his hand and then slams that sword into the ground with great force. That sword starts getting sucked into the earth. Everyone around is wondering, wait, what did he just do? Why is that sword disappearing into the ground? Is he throwing it away? Come on, try to grab that sword fast. Finally, Matter itself lets out a big shout. Hey Charlie, what do you think you're doing? And just like that, he lands like a meteor on the battlefield right on top of that sword. Ah, then he looks around. and he doesn't see anything and asks, "Hey Charlie, where did you send the cross? Nag, I want that sword." And the brave Charlie thinks to himself, yeah, I thought he'd be mad, but not this mad to show up here. All his subordinates notice that the Matarasso is in the area and they bow down to him. Then we're told by the system that the Matarasso is getting penalized because he's a high rank and is attacking the player. After the Matarasso arrives, making all this noise, Charlie tells him that the sword with Sanagi didn't disappear. It just went back to where it belonged. The Matarasso, really angry, tells Charlie to cut the crap, saying it would be his own fault if he gave up both the sword with Sanagi and the mirror and act in the Kagami. He tells Charlie to give up right now and keep it down because that's the only way he can get out of here alive. He demands that Charlie hand over both items now, saying he's going to pretend that none of this happened. So he just stands there waiting for Charlie to give up everything and hand over the sword and the mirror, thinking that the baddest of the bad is too scared of him. Charlie starts laughing in his face and says, "What do you mean you're going to forget everything and act like none of this happened? Do you think I'm an idiot? Here, take this. Shove it where the sun doesn't shine because I don't believe a word you say. Do you think I'm stupid enough to believe you'll let me go after you've killed thousands of your own guys?" Then Matarasso is furious and shouts, "Fireball that kills everyone!" Before saying goodbye, he throws that fireball at Charlie, and since there's music playing, that fireball creates a huge explosion where our hero is standing. But Matarasso is shocked to see something zooming over him at lightning speed because he was sure he'd wiped out Charlie. Just a moment later, he spots what raced by him as there's someone up in a tree. There's our brave Charlie holding the mirror. Thanks to that hack, every attack you throw at that mirror is reflected back at you. So Charlie aims for the mirror and redirects all that damage into several smaller fireballs, all aimed right at Matarasso's submarine. The Matarasso can barely do anything because wherever his fireballs land, his subordinates face instant death, and thus chaos erupts as the mirror and act in the Kagami unleash their attacks. It's like a mystery, locking onto each target and hitting them without missing, even if they're moving. But Charlie's the Zack guy, and he's not just gonna stick to damage reflection, so he summons a lightning bolt because if we're gonna hit, let's hit until the enemy has no will to fight left. So a huge bolt of lightning strikes the ground right where the Matarasso was standing, and the Matarasso gets really mad and then talks to Charlie out. "How dare you? You burned my hair. Now I'm gonna show you why I'm the top rank in this tower." And just like that, the wood lets out a huge scream of rage, and flames fueled by your mana cover the entire battlefield. Everything starts getting really hot, but the ocean's blessing wraps around Charlie, protecting him. Charlie notices that the wood is summoning a demon, and from the sheer power it's emitting, it looks way worse than the first demon he faced in the tutorial. So Charlie says to it, "Hey, if that guy shows up here, all your little friends who are still alive are gonna get incinerated, you know? Don't you care about your buddies?" But the tower's penalty he's getting is so minimal that it's practically nothing. After that, we see a huge fire demon materialize in that spot, and it looks much stronger, way hotter than Surti. Then, the idiot takes the lead, makes the same offer, and tells Charlie, "If you don't want to die, just hand over the sword now." And Charlie, pissed off, responds, "You're not talking about that. Come on, take it from me if you can. And don't pull what you did last time, using your friends to get what you wanted." Charlie, confused, asks what he's talking about. Suddenly, Charlie's hand on his little buddy, a colossal being appears right there, and the demon, seeing that creature, is so shocked that he can't even move. But then, the colossal being swipes its tail and gives that demon a light shove. This creature is so powerful that the height of the demon looks tiny next to it. And just like that, the demon is sent flying back faster than a meteor. As the dust settles, the being Charlie summoned becomes fully visible. Then, the system alerts us that the great Yamato of Orochi has just awakened from its slumber. We see 1, 2, 3, 4 heads, and then 2 more heads appear. 5, 6. Charlie realizes that this was the strategy Jean told him about before his regression. So the daring Charlie, standing on the 7th head of the dragon, kills it. In Orochi, he remembers Jean telling him that he can't let the criminals on the 44th floor unite into one force because it would spell disaster for the tower he could use. So he kills it in Orochi to eliminate them. I don't know how Charlie managed to summon this legendary thing, since he'd said that the Orochi was sleeping on that floor, but it's leaving him really surprised. Why is this dragon obeying his orders? Charlie's just thinking, this dragon is following all my thoughts. Then the dragon and the Orochi ask Charlie if he is the master of the sword with the Sanag, and the brave one is thinking, what? Why is it asking me about the sword? The dragon told Charlie that he and the sword are one and the same. That's when Charlie realized that when he became the master of the sword, he didn't know it was linked to this dragon. So Charlie asked, Orochi, do you help the sword's master or something? The dragon, opening its eyes, replied that it doesn't help those who don't obey the sword's master, since it's not helping Charlie. Just then, someone tiny popped out from Charlie's shoulder and shouted, "Daddy! Daddy!" Charlie didn't even get wide-eyed because the illustrator forgot to draw his eyes. That's when Charlie understood that the big dragon was really not helping him, but rather helping Charlie. And so Charlie said to his son, "Good job, my boy." Charlie put on a cute face, but it also showed he was the most powerful one around. With shining eyes, he pointed at the enemy and said, "Go on, take him down." The seven-headed dragon asked if that demon over there was its enemy. Charlino said yes. Then, the seven-headed dragon, which towers over several mountains and ravines, told Charlino to just stand there and watch how it was going to crush that little bug. The dragon then told Charlino that after doing that, it would go back to sleep, since it was without a heart and a head. You might not know this, but it was Charlie who killed the 8th head back in chapter 23. Charlie was there, all faking it and sweating, thinking he couldn't make that dragon his enemy. Then, Amaterasu, who still didn't understand. "What was going on?" asked Charlie if that was the reason for the greed over the sword, because she thought Charlie was controlling the big dragon through it, not the other way around, which is what he still hadn't seen. So, putting her hands together above her head, Amaterasu started to chant, "Fireball that takes everyone out, bam!" Suddenly, a big interruption happened before she could say goodbye, because someone interrupted her spell. That's when another samurai showed up, perfectly, blocking the wooden balls, and Diego was on top of the wooden fireball. Then, Madeira looked over and said, "What's up, Susano? Oh, it's you. You didn't die." Susano, the battle fanatic, smiled at Mateus and said, "Hey, I always wanted to fight you to the death. I'm really glad this opportunity came up, so get ready to die." And so, the two took their battle stances because this was going to be a fight to the death. But before it started, Susano asked his former friend why he did this to him. What reason could have led him to betray his friend? Amaterasu, super angry, began to growl and said, "Why did I do it? You're asking me why I did it. Do you remember what you told me? Hey Amaterasu, you're such a coward, you know. You'd be really strong if you weren't scared." And Amaterasu reminds him that Susano left him behind to face danger, calling him a coward. This chat happened over an era ago, and if you don't know, an era is 1,000 years. The wood got really upset because it was called weak and cowardly. So, in the present, Susano says to him, "Okay, but why did you betray me?" The wood, still looking all pouty, replied that it did it because it doesn't need him anymore. Then, the wood takes off its mask and shows its true form. We see through the system that Amaterasu dropped his disguise and switched to his true form. So, Amaterasu transforms into a blonde guy dressed in fiery red, his eyes shining with rage, looking even like Rue. Without saying a word, he starts casting a spell, and powerful fireballs start raining down all over the ground. Then Susano tells him, "Oh, now I get it. Thanks for the heads up. Now I know you were never my friend, so I'm coming at you hard. There's no reason to hold back." And so, Susano kicks off an epic battle. Meanwhile, Yamato Naroshi is there fighting that demon and smashing things up, and Charlie, who even knows where he is. Then, Amaterasu, looking like a battle mage, is fighting with both sword and magic. With one hand, he casts several magical spells, while the other hand swings his sword. But with his other hand, fueled by fury, he charges forward, looking for any opening, because today, this fake friend is going down. The battle ramps up, with Susano swinging his sword and Amaterasu unleashing indestructible spells. When these two high-level fighters clash, the impact causes a massive explosion at the site because their power is seriously monstrous. Amaterasu tells Susano that the way he attacks without fear, diving into a fight and going all out, is what had him hooked. As he listens to his friend, he prepares another fireball to hurl at him. However, thinking it's just a fireball, Susano gets caught off guard when Amaterasu closes his fists and uses that fireball spell to engulf his fist, gearing up to land a strong punch. While doing this, he tells Amaterasu that his strategy may have worked in the past, but now it's utterly useless. Then he delivers a super powerful punch to Susano's sword, but Susano holds his ground and doesn't take the hit. Amaterasu tells Susano that he's way stronger than him because unlike him, who died and stood still in time, he's still alive and growing his power. Then, Amaterasu, proving he's much stronger than Susano, lands an even more powerful blow on him, unleashing a colossal fire barrage that destroys everything in its path. So, Matarazzo says to Susanoo, "I'm gonna show you a really interesting move." Then, Matarazzo points 2 fingers at Susanoo, but before he can strike, something incredibly fast zooms by and starts slicing through everything around them. Matarazzo is taken aback and thinks, "Wait, a surprise attack from behind? Who did that?" But the attacker ends up losing. They glance back, and that's when Susanoo delivers a precise hit to Matarazzo, taking advantage of his distraction. Matarazzo starts complaining, saying, "How cowardly, attacking from behind." But Susanoo retorts that he'll do whatever it takes to win a fight, even striking when the enemy is distracted. At this point, we realize that the one who zipped past Matarazzo was Bravo Charlie, who still has time to tease him, saying, "Hey Matarazzo, I don't do anything without thinking. That's why I didn't run run away. So what do you think? Did you like that surprise attack I hit you with from behind? Charlie doesn't stop there. Right afterward, he unleashes a huge lightning bolt on Matarazzo, who is pretty much a goner at that spot. But Matarazzo proves he's a high rank for a reason, as his flame absorbs the lightning that Charlie launched at him. He's really surprised because he didn't know Charlie could unleash such a powerful bolt. However, Matarazzo notices something strange about that lightning. It doesn't have its usual power. There are several attributes mixed in with the lightning's power. Then he realizes that Charlie is a crazy bastard because he perfectly blends two attributes with the same lightning. The lightning, infused with darkness and regular lightning power, strikes Matarazzo with tremendous force. On the other hand, Matarazzo knows he can't take his eyes off Susanoo since he's way stronger than Charlie. He's still a high rank. So, cooking up a strategy, Matarazzo continues to battle Susanoo at peak performance, knowing that Charlie can maintain that summoning for a long time, given that Susanoo is a very powerful high rank, and that's going to eat up a lot of mana. While Charlie keeps his summoning active, he throws a bunch of lightning bolts at Matarazzo, who just absorbs them all like it's nothing. But Susanoo warns Matarazzo, "Hey Matarazzo, you're gonna regret focusing entirely on me. Charlie isn't weak, you know. I get that I'm high rank, but that kid is clever and way smarter than I am. Let me tell you something. That first attack he hit you with was probably just to gauge your strength." Then, another lightning bolt infused with 3 elements crashes down on Matarazzo with great force. However, Matarazzo does the basics. He's not absorbing the lightning Charlie is throwing at him, but the system chimes in, "Whoa, you've absorbed too much now, alright? So, your ability has failed, and that lightning for the first time actually damages the mattress." He grits his teeth because that hurt a lot. Charlie realizes that the mattress is completely ignoring that planet's struggle against Susanoo, thinking it's the top rank, much deadlier than Charlie. But Charlie, activating his gray eyes even more, realizes that the material must also have the lightning attribute. That's why it's taking all this damage so easily. So, brave Charlie, continuing to unleash multiple lightning strikes on the mattress, tells himself he needs to come up with a different solution. Charlie's first thought is to fall back and use the dragon and the tough Urocha to fight the mattress. However, since the mattress is no longer being hit by all the lightning, Charlie has a brilliant idea. He knows that since he's using a lot of mana to sustain himself, the dragon Yamato and Roach must also be draining a lot of mana to face that demonic giant. Because of that, he won't be able to use that dragon. Charlie reflects on his fists and thinks of a new strategy to shake things up on the battlefield. Thus, the heart of Uranus begins to tremble. Charlie thinks to himself that he really doesn't want to do this. Suddenly, Charlie summons Tartarus, because now the King of Hacks starts to unleash all the power he's gained. Charlie doesn't know how to do this, but he feels something different and begins to manipulate the lightning along with the power of Tartarus. Then, tough Charlie summons a super spear. It's noted that when he punched Hercules, it was with the power contained in this spear. And so, the system informs him that Charlie has created the lightning Gonyanero spear, which was able to injure even Hercules' impenetrable body. The mattress goes on high alert, sensing a massive mana rush toward it. It looks back and is utterly shocked, thinking, "What? How does this little screamer have so much mana?" It doesn't realize that since Charlie has all the Infinity Stones, the mana coming off those artifacts seems almost infinite. Then, that swift lightning strikes the ground with such force that it creates an explosion so massive it resembles a nuclear bomb. You didn't catch any of that explosion, did you? Let me break it down for you. Here's what happened. Charlie was in the air, making a big jump and summoned that spear. Then, using gigantification, he throws the spear with tremendous force. Thus, Charlie hits 2 targets, tearing off another 2 heads from the dragon and killing Norochi. Along the way, it's unclear if Charlie kills that giant demon, but one thing is certain, Granini is dangerously close to Amaterasu. So he looks back in shock at how much power Charlie still has left. Planning to change the trajectory of that spear, the mattress wraps itself in its fire. But then someone grabs his hand and says, "Aren't you gonna deflect that attack with your fire this time?" So, Susanoo's sword cuts through Amaterasu's flames and clears the way for Ganinir, who's charging in at full speed. Amaterasu starts screaming, "Susanoo, are you insane? We're gonna die!" Susanoo looks at him, starts smiling, and says, "Are you crazy? I'm already dead, you idiot. You want Ray's spear to come crashing down on me? Just bring me back and I'll be good as new. But you're alive, so now you're coming with me, because when that spear hits, it's taking both of us to hell." Then we have that scene where Ganhinir, looking like a nuclear bomb, hits his target dead on. A demon and 2 dragon heads, Susanoo and Amaterasu, all in one strike, like a perfect strike. But someone, still really injured, activates one of the 3 gifts, because that nag is a high-level healing jewel. With that, Amaterasu's wounds stop bleeding. He drags himself out of that hole, since that blow nearly killed him instantly. If it had hit him directly, he definitely would have died. Then, someone looks at Amaterasu, covered in red liquid, and says, "You look like a snake with a stomachache. writhing in pain. Hey, you've used your healing jewel over and over to patch up that giant demon while he was fighting Yamada no Orochi, but it seems like you were way too slow to use it on yourself. Now look at you, all messed up. We can see Susanoo is completely unscathed because Charlie resurrected him. Then Amaterasu says to Susanoo, you're a bastard for healing yourself to take that hit. I thought you were gonna fight me solo like a man of honor. But Susanoo just stares at that jerk talking about honor. Then someone else quickly appears, steps on Amaterasu's back and says to him, how dare you talk about honor, you pathetic fool? So we can see that Tsukuyomi has also arrived at the scene, and realizing she's there, Amaterasu starts spinning lies and says, Tsukuyomi, it's great you're here. Charlie has been playing us all. He's been after us from the start. But that woman, fed up with lies, says to him, no, he's not after all of us. He just wants you, Amaterasu. Amaterasu, confused, looks back and asks her, what? Then she strokes his back, pressing hard on his wounds, and the red liquid starts to ooze from them as that step reopens all of them. Then she asks Amaterasu, hey, why did you kill Susanoo? How could you kill your own friend, huh? Answer me. As she does this, she keeps stepping on his back and tearing open all of Amaterasu's wounds even more. And on top of that, she shows that her finger looks really ugly. Nah, I'm gonna skip that. So Amaterasu starts screaming in pain because the woman won't stop stepping on his back. Then he says to her, hey, why are you asking that, huh? Did you think there was a big reason for me to betray you guys? Of course not. That wasn't even betrayal. I never considered you guys as friends. First off, I only see you as a woman, not a friend. I wanted you for myself, but that bastard stole you away from me, and that's how he became my rival in love. I did all this because I wanted to get that idiot out of the way, since I'd only have a shot with you if that jerk was out of the picture. While you two were living happily for millennia, I was there, all alone and sad, making this abandoned shell face because he, some ugly guy like that, managed to get such a beautiful woman like you. That's when I decided to kill my love rival. So back to today's scene, where Susanoo is lying face down on the ground. What we're seeing is projected underground because Susanoo's sword pierced his heart and came out the other side. So today Susanoo comes close to him and says, hey, don't worry. Where you're going isn't a very nice place, but hey, death isn't as bad as you think. Then Susanoo pulls his sword out from his ex-friend Amaterasu's back. With one clean cut, Susanoo decapitates him with deadly precision, giving a deserved end to his fake friend. And so, while blood and fire spread throughout the area, yet another chapter comes to a close. Then Susanoo and Tsuki go off to one side to talk, and Charlie turns away because that stage is done. Now on to the next phase. And just like that, Yamato Naroshi gets really mad about losing 2 more heads. So that once friend turns into an enemy and attacks Charlie, but the brave one quickly dodges that strike. Then he says to Charlie, hey Charlie, do you remember the marshmallow experiment? Charlie replies, yeah, of course. However, Charlie notices that Yamato Naroshi wants to devour his body because it looks really tasty. So Charlie's eyes start to shine and he taps into his divine power. Charlie is really taken aback and wonders, wait, how did the sacred flame just appear out of nowhere? Charlie knows he controls the sacred fire, but he hadn't summoned it. So how did it show up? He thinks it must be him who called forth the sacred flame because he didn't know he could share his abilities like that. From the sacred fire, a ton of divine power starts pouring out. Without knowing how, Charlie begins absorbing the divine power and feels it start to restore his mana. So it goes like this. In that cycle, Charlie absorbing divine power that turns into mana. And then you see why Charlie is incredible because it's basically an infinite mana generator. Charlie remembers the moment he gained the sacred fire because that fire was the power of an outsider. And on top of that, it kind of has a mind of its own. So Charlie wonders if the sacred fire recognized him. In that moment, Charlie looks back and sees himself really happy, surrounded by the sacred fire. And he thinks, what would make me say the sacred flames belong to Charlie? It leaves us a bit confused because he didn't realize the sacred fire was his. So he says, Charlie, hey, I'm back on my feet now, alright? So let's go. At that point, little Charlie's eyes light up because now that Dad's back, there's just one thing left to do. Eat and eat. So little Charlie shows his teeth because the predator mode has been activated. Just like that, the jungle in Orach gets completely devoured, both him and the demon, along with the mattress body since a super precious snack just went into the predator's belly. And we're not shown the body while Charlie evolves with this. But then, in the sky above Charlie, a voice says, well, there's not much time left now. And what's that little thing over there? Then the scene shifts far away, and another voice says, what? Not much time left? Then it shifts again to another floor far from there, where another voice chimes in, what are you guys talking about, huh? And so, the 11th eye keeps watching that floor. The 6th eye shows it's watching another floor. Then the other voice calls out to everyone, hey, I want want you all to gather up. And a fourth voice, coming down the stairs, says, yes, they will gather. So a plan is set in motion. Then we see the 13th eye of the great sage, which is like the heavens, watching everything. So we can understand that the people talking are clones of the great sage. He says, all right, everyone, as soon as Charles finishes what he's doing, we're getting ready for the heavenly realm. And that's where we leave it for now. If you liked it, ask for part 33 and I'll make it for you.